Hey there, in today's video we are going to go over how to turn yarn scraps into little fluff that you can use for stuffing, or my preferred method, needle felting. So what you're going to need is a couple of supplies, and the first of that is your yarn scraps, of course. You want to make sure you're using a fiber that will fluff well. This is 100% merino wool. You can also use other animal fibers like alpaca, angora, things like that. Or you can use 100% acrylic or wool acrylic blends. I don't think cotton will work. I'd have to double check on that. So you mainly want to stick with animal fibers. But other than that, you're going to need 2 carding brushes. These are mini carding brushes I got off Amazon. I can put the link down below. It is not an affiliate link. These are just the ones that I bought. And these, like I said, are mini. So if you find that you really like carding your wool, or you want to do more of this in bulk, I recommend getting the full-size carding brushes. They are going to be much larger, and you're going to be able to do a lot more with them. So another thing we're going to need is a pair of scissors. And then lastly, if you're going to be felting, you're going to need a felting needle. To get started, we are going to prep the yarn scraps to go on the carders. And to do that, we need to cut the yarn scraps into slightly smaller pieces. You want to make sure they're not too short, but they're not super long. A little bit longer than the width of the actual carder itself. Now that we have a little pile, we are going to start attaching them to the carder, and how you do that is you're going to run the fibers along the bristles and catch them. So we're not pulling too hard, we're just trying to get the fibers kind of stuck a little bit so that part of it's hanging off the end of the carder. That's where we're going to brush out first. So you want to just line each piece, filling up the carder until you get to the end. Careful not to like overload it. Like, these are mini. You could do a lot more if you had bigger carders. Now we're going to take the second carder and we're going to gently brush the fibers. Those two got loose immediately. That's okay. This is a process where we're going to keep going over and over again. So I'm gently brushing the fibers. And to be clear, I'm not a professional at this. So I'm sure there's a certain technique, but what I'm doing is going back and forth. I flipped it over, so now I'm brushing across the left carder and trying to get some of those little bits to brush out a little bit better. But I did learn a cool little trick. So if you want to get all of the material off of one carder and onto the other, what you can do is hold it so that the top end of one carder is touching the bottom side of the other. The bristles are going to be facing opposite ways, and you're going to gently drag the fibers, and they should almost completely remove from the top brush and stay on the bottom one. So I thought that was pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this process and brush back and forth until a lot of these little stringy bits brush out into fluff. And another cool little tip, if you want to pull all of the material off, what you can do is go to the top edge so that the bristles are facing down or towards you. You can gently pull the wool off of the bristles, just like so. Now this isn't done because you can see all the little stringy bits that still need to brush out, but I wanted to show you that you can actually combine colors, and that's a really cool thing that I really like using these yarn scraps for. So I'm going to grab some of my other yarn scraps to combine with this orange and create a cool mix color. I pulled out some pink. It is the same 100% merino wool, although you can blend fibers if you want to. I don't know how that would affect things. I think if you're needle felting, I don't think it matters, as long as you're still using like an animal fiber or acrylic. But I'm preparing it the same way I did with the orange, cutting small strips. And then I'm going to put them on the carder and brush them out just like I did the orange before we do the combining. Then to combine colors, I'm going to take the orange first. I want that one to be the core color. So I'm taking little bits at a time, and just like we did with the yarn scraps, I'm kind of dragging the fibers from the base of the carder out of the top so that it's kind of leaving a little bit of an edge, and just adding a little bit more and more. You don't want to, like I said, you don't want to overload it, just do a thin layer at a time. So I'm pulling off the little bits of excess, and after I've got the orange on, I'm going to add a little bit of the pink. Just doing a few strands here and there. And I decided to add a little bit more orange. And then once you're satisfied with the amount of color that you have on there, you start brushing again to combine. Overall, this process does take a little while, but it's kind of therapeutic just brushing and brushing back and forth until you end up with a nice solid little ball of fluff. And I will, so you don't have to sit here and watch me brush for a while. Even though this is super sped up, I'm going to skip to the part where I have brushed it out. It took me about 20 minutes to get this where I kind of like the consistency. So this is the finished ball of fluff, and you can kind of see the pink has melded with the orange, so it's a slightly lighter color overall. I think it actually adds a lot of depth. When you compare it to just the orange by itself, it's a lighter color. And you can really play around with this with all sorts of yarn scraps, so you can really customize the colors that you want to use when you're needle felting on your amigurumi, or if you just want to try needle felting on its own. So if you can see the color better against this ball, I really like it. It kind of gives me like sunset fire vibes. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun with this, and I've already felted up this pink. I mixed two different pinks together for this one, and I started on a purple. But you can also use this for stuffing, which if you don't like having white stuffing showing through, you can always use your yarn scraps to create stuffing that will be the same color as your project. And for one thing, I really don't like using yarn scraps by themselves as stuffing, because when you're sewing through, it can get tangled, or you can end up pulling the strands out, and it's just kind of unruly. That's just my personal opinion though. And as a quick little demo, I will show you how I use this stuffing to needle felt a little circle onto this little sample project. I personally think it works really well, especially because I'm using the same fiber of yarn as I did with the project. I think the texture is a lot nicer, but I will go more in detail on this on another video where I really want to dive into needle felting techniques on amigurumi. So stay tuned for that. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.